Welcome to another Friday Google session. Just waiting for some viewers to join, and we will start on using some advanced calendar techniques. And I see we've got one viewer that has joined us, so we'll just give people a few minutes and we'll get started. And a reminder that these are available on the portal, usually Monday after. This Monday's a holiday, so it'll be available on Tuesday. And a reminder to those watching live that you can use the QA button to submit questions during the presentation, or you can also just send me a Hangout message if you have questions during the presentation. And we'll get started in just a minute. Okay, great. I see that a few more people have joined, so we'll go ahead and get started. So today we are going to go over using the calendar. I'm going to do a refresher on some of the basic aspects of using the calendar, and then I'm going to show some advanced uses of the calendar. The calendar is kind of a unsung tool in that it's not as exciting as some of the other products, but in all honesty, it's one of my favorite products. So everybody should know that to get to the calendar, if they click on the grid and jump over to calendar, that you're going to be inside your calendar. And you'll notice that mine is quite busy, and that's because I've added some additional calendars that I'm following. These are actually some Google release calendars letting us know when some of the new features are coming. And I'll show you how you can manage calendars like that as well. So just a quick refresher on looking at the calendar. You'll notice that I've got mine set up in month view, but you can pick day, week, agenda, etc. Depending on what view you pick, it's going to give you different options when we're going to use this quick add that I'm going to show you later today. So I'll remind you of that. Generally, just like in email, there's going to be a create button over here that's going to allow you to create new calendar items. And like in all the Google apps, if I click on the gear and go to settings, this is where I can customize my preferences for the calendar. So generally, I like to do a couple of things. I like to turn on the weather here, so it gives me a little weather preview. You can set your location with just a zip code. You can decide what your default view is, if you want it to be month or agenda or one of the other views, and you can go through and make a few tweaks there. Just like in email, there is a labs section. So you can go through and turn on some of these little enhanced features that make your calendar work just a little bit better. As I mentioned in the initial training, I find that on the Google Calendar Labs, you might have to go through a few times to enable it if you're turning on multiple ones, just to get it to stick. So let's review some basic things here. We'll get into some advanced items. So creating a new event is pretty simple. So I can either click on my calendar and create it, or I can click the Create button. When I'm in creating an event, you're going to want to give that a good name. You're going to pick your start date time, end date time. You can make an all-day event or repeating event. It gives you decent options for doing a recurring event here. You can go ahead and type in a location. I always prefer to put in a full address of a location, especially if I'm inviting people from outside town, because when it comes up on their phone, it'll actually give them a Google Maps link with GPS directions on how to get here. So if I just typed in something like police department, it's actually guessing based on my location, and it's going to give me some good Google addressing in there. This video call section, so you can see I'm basically doing a video call right now for this training. It's called a Hangout. So you can, instead of inviting people to a location, or in addition to that, you can add a video call. I could go and rename that if I wanted to. Give it a name, and then people can come and actually click and attend the meeting in sort of a web conference or a screen sharing session. I can decide what calendar that's going to go into. So these are the different calendars that I have access to, and we'll talk about that. Those are generally going to be my group calendars. And some of these could actually be a public web calendar where you could publish events to a web or an intranet site. But generally, it's going to go in your default calendar. You can give it a description. That's usually helpful. You can also add drive attachments. So if you want to attach a flyer or any other document to that, you can attach just by clicking Add Attachment here. And what that's going to do, it's going to go through and check your Google Drive folder. And if you don't already have it in Google Drive, you can go ahead and, just like an email attachment, select and browse and attach that. And there's also sort of a favorites here that you can access. And you can attach multiple files to that if you want, and then people will get a list, and when they get the invitation to that event, they can access those documents. It'll fix the permissions to the people that you've invited to the event. I can change the color. I can change my default notification here. A reminder that you may want to book a meeting just as like a placeholder on your calendar, but you still want to be available to be invited to meetings, so you can make yourself available there. Over here, I can invite guests. So this is going to search anyone in that I've sent or received mail from. It's going to search the whole directory. It's going to search my contacts. I can invite mail groups, etc., to that list. And so I'll usually pick on John here. I'll go ahead and invite John. If I want to make somebody an optional attendee, I can just click on their little head icon here. So white means optional, and black means required for that event. I can decide what guests are allowed to do down here in terms of modifying the event or inviting other people, etc. And one of the really powerful things that we have access we have available to us is the ability to book meeting rooms. So these are special calendars in Google called resource calendars. Now, they don't have to be a meeting room. They can be a projector, they can be a vehicle, they can be anything that people may be reserving. And this is a great way of keeping track of how resources are used. So what's going to happen is it's going to look at the date and time, and it's only going to show me rooms or resources that are available during the entire time that I'm looking to book them. If it's already booked during that time, it won't show up in the list, and it won't let me book it. If I were to pick something, so even though the town hall is closed right now, I'm going to pick the Board of Selectmen meeting room, and you'll notice that it puts that location right in the where, again, giving people a specific address of where they're going to go to that meeting. But I can also do things like I've made some of our conference lines as resource calendars. So if I wanted to book, say, a telephone conference, I can pick one of my available conference lines here, and it'll throw the Meet Me information right into the invite so that the people receiving the invitation now know how to call in. And the way you activate those on your Cisco phone, there's a button that says Meet Me. You hit that button, you type in the internal Meet Me extension, and that turns on the conference line for people to call in. If you don't have a Meet Me button on your phone, or you have questions about that, you can shoot me an email offline, and we can talk about that a little bit. In this case, I'm not going to invite that room. Well, actually, let me do that. So before I go ahead and hit save, I can go make sure that that time is going to work for any people I've invited, plus any conference rooms or resources I've invited by clicking on Find a Time here. So that's going to show me the other calendars, free, busy only, depending on what they've shared with me. And I can go over here and drag that and find a time that's going to work for everybody, including the room or including the resource. And I don't have to, I can look at the week in advance, and it's going to show me what's working for people. And I can go ahead and move that around and see that that's going to work. Once that is all set, I'm going to hit save. It's going to send out an invitation to the people I've invited. I'm going to have an event. And then the advantage of doing that is if I update that meeting, the guests are going to receive an update on that. So I just want to talk about using the calendar generally, and then we'll get into some of the advanced features. So the calendar is one of the most powerful tools for me because it takes things that may be in your inbox or you might have to remember, and it turns them into an action item. So I generally like to work out of my calendar versus email. If I'm trying to plan a meeting with people, generally I'll start by sending a calendar invitation out as opposed to sending an email and asking people to create an event manually in their own calendar. And the reason is if people do that, you might have 20 different calendar events now. And if there's a change to the event, you have to trust that those 20 people are going to update their calendar appropriately. And you've got a kind of a disjointed way of doing things. Also, if there are attachments or notes or other thing, it's just a good way of keeping that centralized and keeping it all working right in your calendar, as opposed to having dozens of emails go back and forth with people trying to plan an event. So my recommendation is if you're planning meetings, try and do it out of your calendar as opposed to your email, and see how that works for you. Another kind of powerful thing linking your email to your calendar is you may have noticed that when people send you an email with a date in it, that date is underlined. What that allows you to do is click on that date. And if the time were not separated by this word here, it would include all of it. But so here's a reminder for the fire chief's retirement celebration on April 19th. So if I click this, it's going to allow me to add that directly to my calendar. In this case, I can go ahead and add a time. I can click Add to Calendar. And then after I hit Add to Calendar, this will change to Edit in Calendar, and then I can go in and I can manage that event. I can invite additional people, etc. But you'll notice here that it's got a link back to that email. So if the time of that event comes around, and I forget what it was about, I can always open my calendar, open the email, and get a refresher on what that was. Another thing that you can do from an email is if I've got an email open and I click on More, I can do this thing that's called Create Event. So that is going to do a couple cool things. In this case, it's automatically going to add anyone who was copied on that email. And in this case, everyone was copied, so I don't necessarily want to include them on the event. But anybody that was copied on that email address is going to automatically add them. It's going to copy the text of the email into my description here, and it's going to allow me, I'm going to have to pick the date and time, but that's a great way of turning something that was in an email into an action item or something on your calendar without having to type it in manually. You just have to pick a date and time. So that's kind of a neat feature. There is another option if I click more, add to tasks, but you're going to see that in the new reminders and calendar, which is actually better than tasks, that feature is being depreciated. So you can still do it, but I'd recommend doing the create event versus add to tasks at this point, as that's probably going to get phased out. So let's jump back in the calendar. I'm going to show you a couple of other advanced features that you may not know about in the calendar. One is, so depending on what view I'm looking at in my calendar, rather than using the create button over here, if I simply click on an open field and month view, it's going to give me the option to do a quick event. I can pick what calendar and then I can go in and edit it. Or there's this new feature called Reminder. And I just want to go over how to turn that on and what that is. So Reminder is sort of an enhanced task. So if you expand the list of my calendars, one of the calendars down here probably says tasks right now. And that's sort of your old Outlook style tasks. In order to switch to the new reminders, you're simply going to click on this little arrow here, and I'm going to do switch to reminders. And that's going to turn that into the special kind of calendar over here on the left. So one of the nice things about a reminder is when you add it, so if I click here and I do a new reminder, I can make that repeat. I can set a specific time. That's only for me. The reminders are only for me. You don't share those. But if I don't complete a reminder, so let's just do a test reminder. And you notice it throws up a little a test reminder there. You can do this from your phone as well. If you have the Google Calendar on your phone and you do new, it'll let you do a reminder. And there's some shortcuts on your phone that make it a little easier to use when you're on the go. If I don't complete this reminder, it will actually start moving from day to day. So it starts nagging you, which is kind of a nice feature. So if you set a reminder and you don't complete it, so to complete it, I simply click on it here and I can say mark that as done. But if I don't do that, and you can see it moved it back to today because that's when I completed the reminder. But if I don't do that, it'll start moving. And if you're not careful, you'll have all your reminders starting to follow you. So it'll force you either to reorganize them or get them done. So it's kind of a nice way of prompting yourself to get work done. Another kind of really cool feature, if I'm on week or day view, if I go to my calendar, I can do something called appointment slots. So if I click a spot on my calendar, you can see now that I have three options. I can do an event, I can do a reminder, or I can do what's called appointment slots. So appointment slots is like setting up office hours. If you want to have people be able to book time with you, or you're having a meetings, or you're doing reviews or something like that, and you want to give people some available slots, you can set aside a slot of 5 30-minute sessions, or one session, or however you want to carve it up. And then you can allow people basically to use a link and sign up for that slot. So it's a really cool feature. We're going to start using that more for some of these help desk sessions. The only limitation is the person that you're inviting has to have a Google account of some kind in order for that to work. So they have to be a Google user. So the good news is everybody town school has Google. That's going to work. That's going to work out great. So another feature that I just want to get into is if I go into my calendar and I click on my calendar settings, there's a new feature called Trash, where I can actually come over here and I can see calendar items that I've recently deleted, just like an email. So if you delete something from a calendar, you can actually go into that calendar and you can restore items that you've deleted. So that's a feature that not a lot of people know about. So let's talk briefly about some of these extra calendars that I have and how these are working here. So you can see that I've got several calendars here. So this is mine, and this is a default calendar. We've got sort of shared department calendars. We set these up for some of you if you would like help setting up a calendar that you can manage with your department or a team or group that you're working on. Just let me know. We can help you do that. There are also other calendars down here. Here's my weather calendar. If I wanted to request access to a coworker's calendar, I simply type in their email address here, and they'll get an invitation letting them know that I want to share their calendar. They will then get to pick whether they share it or not, and if they do share it, what level of access. So they can share, so they can only see Free Busy, they can see event details, or they can even allow me to edit that calendar in my calendar, and that would then show up in my list of calendars here, and it just makes it easier for planning events if you're working with people around that. You'll point out on this staff portal here, this is one of the really cool features of Google Calendar, is you notice on the side here, you're seeing a bunch of different calendars all stacked together. So this is actually every meeting room, every school calendar, every town calendar, all in one place. And if I click on that, that's going to tell me more details about that. So here's this thing over here at the Senior Center. And I can click on that. I can see if this is an event. I can actually take that event and copy it right to my own calendar. But if I wanted to, you'll notice that I've got a legend over here that shows me how each of those calendars breaks down. And I can actually click on a calendar to get just that one calendar. And you'll notice at the bottom of these Google Calendars, anytime you see a Google Calendar on a website, down here in the lower right is this thing that says Add to Google Calendar. So whenever you see that, that's going to take that and it's going to put it in your list of other calendars here. So you're not going to be able to edit that calendar necessarily unless you have rights to it. But what it is going to allow you to do is see that calendar punched in with all your other calendars, and it gives you the ability to keep track of things right in your own calendar. If you're using this on your mobile phone, you're going to see that on your phone as well. And again, it's just a way of keeping informed. So I always like to see what Google features are coming out. So I went on one of the Google websites. There was the ability to subscribe to these various calendars. And you'll see if I click on the little link under other calendars here, I can do browse interesting calendars. There's all different kinds of holidays. There's different sports calendars. There's some other options here. And there's one of these called resources for North Andover. And if I click on that, you can see that these are all those meeting rooms and resources. So you could actually subscribe to those calendars so you could see what was going on in the different meeting rooms in your own calendar, just as a guide to help you plan events. So that's kind of a neat feature. I'm not seeing any questions coming up. You can see I've got a few different labs turned on over here. I've got a world clock, and I've got a jump to date, and a little Free or Busy lookup tool. There's some other things. I got those just by enabling the labs. So we're getting to about 20 minutes. We've tried to keep these kind of brief. Hopefully people got something out of this one. Again, I try to move things from email to calendar whenever possible, just because it sends me a reminder. It's something that I can act on, as opposed to keeping things starred in my inbox, for weeks or months at a time. It just allows me to kind of relax a little bit and get my to-do list going. So hopefully this was informative. Shoot me email with any questions you have after this, and I'll edit this video and get it posted on the portal for next week. So have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.